Imagine waking up one morning in your downtown apartment. You grab your coffee, look out the window, and instead of the usual cityscape, you see smoke rising from the middle of the street. Not from a fire, not from construction, from the ground itself splitting open. Within hours, molten rock is fountaining into the sky where a parking lot used to be. Sound impossible? It's not. And today, we're going to explore exactly what would happen if a volcano suddenly formed in the heart of a major city. Can this actually happen? Before we dive into the chaos, let's address the big question. Can a volcano actually just appear in the middle of a city? The short answer is yes. It's rare, but it has happened before. In 1943, a farmer in Mexico was working his cornfield when the ground started to crack and hiss. Within a day, a volcanic cone had risen 50 feet high. Within a week, it was 300 feet tall. By the end of the year, it had grown to over 1,100 feet. This volcano, called Parícutin, buried 2 entire villages under lava and ash. It didn't form under a major city, but it proved that volcanoes can appear virtually anywhere there's the right geological conditions. So what are those conditions? Volcanoes typically form where tectonic plates meet, either pulling apart or colliding, but they can also form over hotspots, which are areas where superheated plumes of magma rise from deep within the Earth's mantle. These hotspots don't move, but the tectonic plates above them do, which is why we get volcanic chains like the Hawaiian Islands. Now here's the terrifying part. Many major cities sit on or near fault lines and volcanic zones. Tokyo, Naples, Seattle, Mexico City, Auckland. All of these cities exist in geologically active areas. While the odds of a brand new volcano punching through downtown are extremely low, they're not zero. For our scenario today, let's imagine this happens to a city of about 5 million people. Think somewhere like Phoenix, Atlanta, or Manchester, a major metropolitan area with dense population, critical infrastructure, and millions of lives at stake. Day 1. The warning signs. It wouldn't happen without warning. Days or even weeks before the eruption, there would be signs. The question is, would anyone notice? First would come the earthquakes, small tremors at first, magnitude 2 or 3, the kind that rattle windows and make chandeliers swing. In earthquake-prone areas, people might not think much of it, but these tremors would be different. They'd cluster in one specific area of the city, and they'd increase in frequency. 1 per day becomes 5 per day, becomes 20. Seismologists would pick up on something unusual. The earthquakes would show a specific pattern called volcanic tremor, a continuous rhythmic shaking caused by magma moving underground. This would trigger emergency meetings. Geological surveys would be rushed to the area. Meanwhile, other signs would appear. Ground temperatures would rise in certain neighborhoods. Pets would behave strangely, sensing the infrasonic vibrations humans can't detect. Water mains might burst as the ground shifts. Trees and grass in city parks would start to wilt and die as volcanic gases seep up through the soil. If the city has geothermal monitoring, and let's hope it does, scientists would detect rising concentrations of sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and radon gas. These are the breath of the awakening volcano. The critical decision. Here's where things get complicated. Should the city evacuate based on these warning signs? Evacuating 5 million people is not a simple task. It requires closing businesses, shutting down transit systems, clearing highways, and finding shelter for millions. It costs billions of dollars. And if the volcano doesn't erupt, or if it's a minor event, public officials face massive backlash. But if they wait too long, people die. In our scenario, let's say officials make the right call. As the earthquakes intensify and gas emissions spike, an evacuation order is issued for the central city, about 2 million people in a 10-mile radius. They have 48 hours to leave. The scene would be pandemonium. Highways clog immediately. Families pack whatever they can carry. Hospitals scramble to move patients. Emergency services work around the clock. Some people refuse to leave, either in denial or unwilling to abandon their homes and businesses. And then, just as the evacuation reaches its peak, it happens. Ground zero. Let's say the volcano breaks through in the city's downtown area, perhaps through a major intersection or a public plaza. The initial eruption would be both spectacular and terrifying. The ground doesn't just crack, it explodes. Pressurized magma, gas, and rock fragments blast upward in a violent eruption called a phreatic explosion. This happens when rising magma hits groundwater, turning it instantly to steam. The steam pressure builds until the earth literally blows apart. The initial blast could hurl boulders the size of cars hundreds of feet into the air. They'd crash through buildings, destroy vehicles, and create instant devastation in a several-block radius. Anyone still in the immediate area would have virtually no chance of survival. Within minutes, a volcanic cone would begin to form. Lava, molten rock at temperatures between 1,300 and 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit would fountain from the growing crater. In a city environment, this creates unique dangers. Urban inferno. Lava flows in cities behave differently than in natural environments. Instead of flowing freely downhill, the lava encounters buildings, underground infrastructure, and obstacles at every turn. When lava hits a building, the structure doesn't just catch fire, it can explode. Water pipes burst and flash to steam. Gas lines rupture and ignite. The building's foundation cracks and collapses. Modern buildings with steel frames might last longer, but eventually the intense heat causes the steel to soften and buckle. The lava would flow down streets like hellish rivers, seeking the lowest ground. It would pour into subway systems and underground parking garages, creating deadly steam explosions. Sewers would become conduits for lava, spreading the destruction in unpredictable ways. And then there's the ash cloud. Volcanic eruptions produce enormous quantities of ash, pulverized rock and glass fragments so fine they can travel thousands of miles on the wind. In our urban eruption, ash would blanket the city within hours. This isn't the soft ash from a fireplace. Volcanic ash is sharp, abrasive, and heavy. It clogs engines, collapses roofs, contaminates water supplies, and causes severe respiratory problems. A few inches of ash can make roads impassable. A foot of ash can collapse most buildings. The ash cloud would also ground all aircraft. Modern jet engines cannot operate in ash-filled skies. The ash melts inside the engine and solidifies, causing catastrophic failure. This means no air evacuations, no supply flights, and no aerial firefighting or rescue operations. For people still evacuating, the ashfall would turn day into night. Visibility would drop to near zero. Breathing would become difficult without masks. Vehicles would stall as ash clogs their air filters and engines. The wider impact. But the destruction wouldn't stop at the city limits. Depending on the wind, ash could fall hundreds of miles away, disrupting agriculture, contaminating reservoirs, and causing respiratory crises in neighboring cities. The eruption would also trigger secondary disasters. Ruptured gas lines would spark fires across the city. Broken water mains would flood areas while simultaneously leaving firefighters without water pressure. Hospitals hopefully evacuated would be inaccessible to anyone injured in the chaos. The economic impact would be staggering. This isn't just one city, it's a hub in a global network. Supply chains would snap. Millions of jobs would vanish overnight. The stock market would plunge. And through all of this, the volcano would continue to grow. The evacuation zone. By day 3, the volcano has created a cone several hundred feet tall, and lava has covered several square miles of the city center. The evacuation zone has expanded to 20 miles. 5 million people have become refugees in their own country. Temporary camps spring up in surrounding areas, tent cities, converted warehouses, requisition hotels, but the infrastructure can't handle it. Supplies run short, tempers flare, families are separated. The human cost goes beyond just those killed in the eruption itself. Emergency services face impossible choices. Medical resources are stretched to breaking point, treating burns, respiratory injuries, and trauma. Search and rescue teams work in extremely dangerous conditions, knowing the volcano could intensify at any moment. Can you stop a volcano? Here's a question people always ask: can we stop it? Can we redirect the lava, or cool it down, or plug the volcano? The short answer is no. Humans have tried various methods to divert lava flows, building barriers, bombing lava tubes, even spraying water on advancing lava. These have had limited success in small-scale situations, but against a major eruption in an urban environment, we're essentially powerless. The lava is too hot, too voluminous, and too powerful. Building barriers just causes the lava to pool until it overtops them or finds another route. Bombing creates temporary channels but doesn't stop the flow. Water cooling has worked on tiny, slow-moving flows, but you'd need to pump millions of gallons per minute to make any difference against a city-scale eruption. The only real option is to evacuate and wait. How long does it last? This is the question everyone wants answered. When can we go home? The answer varies enormously. Parícutin, that Mexican volcano we mentioned earlier, erupted for 9 years. Mount Vesuvius buried Pompeii in a single day, but has had eruptions lasting months. Some volcanoes have continuous eruptions lasting decades. For our scenario, let's say the main eruptive phase lasts 6 months. The lava flows eventually slow and stop. The ash emissions decrease. The seismic activity calms. Scientists declare the volcano dormant, though not extinct. It could erupt again, returning to the ruins. 6 months later, people are allowed to return, but they're not returning to a city. They're returning to a moonscape. The downtown area is buried under 50 to 100 feet of solidified lava rock. Entire neighborhoods are gone, not destroyed, simply erased under a black frozen sea of basalt. Skyscrapers that survived are now surrounded by volcanic rock up to their 20th floors, transformed into bizarre monuments jutting from the lava plain. Areas that weren't covered in lava are still devastated. Ash has damaged or destroyed most structures. The weight of accumulated ash has collapsed roofs. Corrosive gases have eaten away at metal and concrete. There's no power, no water, no sewer systems. And in the center of it all sits the new volcano, a stark smoking cone that has permanently altered the geography and destiny of the city. The impossible choice. Now comes the hardest question: do you rebuild? On one hand, this is home for millions of people. It's where they have jobs, memories, communities. The surrounding infrastructure, highways, ports, railways, still exists. The city's function in the regional and national economy is critical. On the other hand, there's now an active volcano in the middle of it. Sure, it's dormant now, but volcanoes don't go away. They can reawaken at any time. Next year, next decade, next century. Building a city around an active volcano means accepting that risk forever. Some historical cities have done exactly this. Naples sits in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. Iceland has multiple cities near active volcanoes. They live with the risk because the land is valuable, the location strategic, or because moving millions of people simply isn't feasible. In our scenario, the decision would likely be a compromise. The immediate eruption zone, the area buried in lava, would be abandoned or converted into a memorial and scientific monitoring station. But the surrounding city would be rebuilt with new building codes, early warning systems, and evacuation plans. It would become the city with a volcano, a unique place that attracts both scientists and tourists, but where residents live with an edge of uncertainty. The scientific legacy. One positive outcome: this would be the most studied and monitored volcano in human history. Scientists would install thousands of sensors. Every tremor, every gas emission, every tiny change would be recorded. The data gathered would revolutionize our understanding of volcanic processes. This monitoring network would become a model for cities worldwide. After all, if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. Cities in volcanic zones would upgrade their monitoring systems. Emergency response protocols would be rewritten. The world would be better prepared for the next time. And there will be a next time. The human element. But beyond the science and the economics, there's the human story. Thousands of personal tragedies and triumphs. The family that lost everything but stayed together. The business owner who rebuilt from scratch. The emergency responder who saved lives at great personal risk. These stories would become part of the city's identity, a reminder of resilience in the face of nature's awesome power. So what if a volcano formed in the middle of a city? The result would be one of the most catastrophic natural disasters in human history, but not necessarily the deadliest if we're lucky and prepared. Modern monitoring systems can provide warnings. Organized evacuations can save millions of lives, but the physical and economic destruction would be almost total for the city center. We'd lose irreplaceable history, critical infrastructure, and the accumulated work of generations. But we'd also demonstrate something important, that humans can survive and adapt to even the most dramatic changes nature throws at us. The truth is, Earth is a volcanic planet. It always has been and always will be. We build our cities on land that's borrowed from geological processes millions of years old. Sometimes nature decides to reclaim what's hers. The question isn't whether something like this could happen, it's whether we're ready when it does. Thanks for watching Imagine This. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more explorations of the impossible, the unlikely, and the absolutely fascinating. Drop a comment below. Which city do you think is most at risk? And what scenario should we explore next? Until next time, keep imagining.